Hello everyone, this is Jude Leonard from Department of Physics, St. Joseph's College of Arts and Science, Cuddalore. Now we are going to discuss about the basics of ionic conductivity. Before understanding the conductivity of ions, we have to know what are electrolytes. So it is the solution that carries electricity through the movement of ions, and there are types of electrolytes. It's in form of solid too. In general, we mean that electrolytes are in a type of a liquid form. So the types are solid, fast ion and superionic electrolyte. Since we are dealing with ionic conductors, we have to know the electronic conductivity too. So here it is a comparison of both ionic and electronic conductivity. Here in metals, there is electronic conductivity. There is a wide range of conductivity, and in solid too, there is a range in which the conductivity values changes. So it is not in the similar range when comparing to electronic and ionic conductors. And second one is electrons carries current in electronic conductivity, whereas ions, it is obviously we know that ions carry current in electrolytes, solid electrolytes. And the third point is very important, which makes the major difference between the electronic and ionic conductors, electrolytes. So conductivity increases linearly as temperature decreases, and here the conductivity decreases exponentially as temperature decreases. This makes the major difference between these two. Here defects plays a major role in the conduction of ions, as we already discussed about the defects and its types in our previous video. And here the defect plays a major role. It means that when an ion shifts from occupied site to a vacant site, so this transition of ions from its place or lattice points leads to the conduction of ions. And the ionic conductivity can only occur if the defects are present. So defects are the main source for this conduction of ions, and we know that there are two simplest types of point defects. One is Scotty and other one is Frankel. Here we can see the picture of a Scotty defect. As we know, the ions Na plus and Cl minus gets distorted from its original site, creates a defect. This defect is called as a Scotty defect, and this must, for example, if Na plus ion transacts through the lattice point, there is a significant distortion, or we can call it as a relaxation in the crystal points. And the second important factor is there is a relatively high probability that an ion from its place will jump back to its original position. So it recreates it, so it backs to its original position, and this will lead to no net ionic migration. There is no ionic migration within that material. A large number of ions of one particular species should be mobile, so they can travel from one point, there is a lattice point, to another lattice point, from occupied space to empty space within the one species of a particular material. Either vacancies are created or it can be an interstitial site. And the second one is empty sites are needed for ions to move through the lattice, since it is a basic requirement for an ion to travel. If there is an empty site, so it can transfer from occupied site to the empty sites, and this leads to the migration of ions. And the next one is both empty and occupied sites should have a similar potential energies. Both the sites have the same kind of potential energy, and the important thing is they have a low activation energy barrier. So it is a requirement to jump or to migrate the ion between their neighboring sites. And the last one is high activation energy decreases carrier mobility, and this leads to carrier localization. The structure of this particular solid framework preferably should be in the 3D, and it should be permeated by the open channels. The migrating ion should be in the molten state. This is very important. If it is in the molten state, it is the framework of other ions is needed. The entire thing is to prevent the melting of the material. So in order to avoid the melting process, the migrating ion lattice should be in the molten form. And the last one is usually ions. The framework usually anions, which is used because of that highly polarizability capacity. Such ions can deform to stabilize the transition state geometries, and this is used to deform the structure, that is stabilize the transition structure of that materials. These migrating ions can be achieved by covalent interactions. This video brings about the overall highlights of electronic and ionic conductivities. Thank you.